please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, almost 6 months after the Punjab National Bank filed a complaint with the CBI alleging that Nirav Modi had cheated and caused wrongful loss to the bank, the Interpol is expected to issue a red corner notice against him on India's request. Now, this news has come in the backdrop of a report by the Indian Express, which quotes sources saying that in a June 5th letter to Indian agencies, the Interpol has said that Nirav Modi travelled between the United States, the United Kingdom and Hong Kong on his Indian passport between the 15th of March and the 31st of March. Now, here's what is curious. Remember, Nirav Modi's passport was revoked by India on the 24th of February. To discuss the curious case of Nirav Modi travelling on a revoked passport, we have with us former diplomat K.C. Singh. I'm also joined by my colleague Sanjay Suri from London, and we will be joined by other guests shortly as well. Mr. Singh, let me come to you, sir, first. You've also been a part of the Ministry of External Affairs. You know, for a layperson, explain to us, how does this happen? The Indian government revoked Nirav Modi's passport on the 24th of February, and according to the Interpol, Nirav Modi has been travelling between 3 different countries on 4 different occasions till the 31st of March. How do you explain that?
Shireen, some 22 years ago, I was also the Chief Passport Officer and the Joint Secretary dealing with passports, so I know a bit about it. When we revoke a passport, it's a Government of India decision. It's a Ministry of External Affairs decision. But Ministry of External Affairs doesn't deal with Interpol. Our interface with Interpol is CBI. So it would go to all our immigration checkpoints, which means if he's leaving India or he's trying to enter India, we can nab him. Now, how to get that into the international system? Now, simply because we revoke a passport, the other countries are not going to take notice of it. It has no legality as far as they are concerned. Some may take note of it, some may not have it in their systems. So you have to very quickly get a red corner notice, which means you must go to Interpol and get a red corner notice issued, which then the countries, list in their immigration authorities' computer, and it becomes then operational. But I think the problem here has been, I'm hearing you tell now that CBI is still in the process of getting a red corner notice. Now, why should it take 6 months? Normally, yes, before you go to Interpol, you have to have some kind of a case, because you can't just be listing. You would have seen recently Russian government revoking or issuing red corner notices against some businessmen they don't like, Russian businessmen, which Interpol has returned. Yeah. So there should be a prima facie case. But I'm sure they had a case back in January, 6 months ago. So what the government needs to answer is, why did CBI take so long to tell Interpol to issue the red corner notice? I think that's where the problem is. Because till the notice is there, the other countries will say, we didn't know you revoked the passport. How are we supposed to know?
Yeah, so mere revocation of the passport by the Indian government does not necessarily mean that he will be denied entry or exit into any other jurisdiction until a red corner notice is issued. But let me also bring in my colleague Sanjay Suri in on this conversation. Sanjay, it is now absolutely clear that Nirav Modi also travelled to the UK, while the Indian authorities continue to maintain that they don't know where he currently is. What is the information that you have there in the UK?
Well, let's speak about a couple of bits of very definite information. One is that on the 19th of February of this year, the Indian government wrote to the Home Office in Britain saying that they have revoked Nirav Modi's passport. That communication was given to the UK on the 19th of February officially, to which the UK government replied saying that yes, he did enter the UK, but that
We've lost that line with Sanjay Suri. We'll reconnect with him, but we also have the former CBI Director, Mr. A.P. Singh, with us. Mr. Singh, let me get you to respond to questions that we're asking here. How is it that Nirav Modi till the 31st of March has continued to travel between 3 different countries on a passport that was revoked on the 24th of February. Additional information just coming in from my colleague in London, Sanjay Suri, saying that the Indian authorities had written to the UK Home Office on the 19th of February, informing them about the passport revocation of Nirav Modi, and yet he seems to have been even with the UK. Mr. Singh, is this not a failure on the part of the Indian agencies?
Well, you just said that the Indian agencies had already informed the UK. Now, if UK has not acted on it, how can you blame the Indian agencies?
Okay, but the Red Corner notice, the notice for that has barely been issued a few days ago, or at least the request for that has barely been issued a few days ago by the Indian agencies to the Interpol.
It's, first of all, let me clear a misnomer. It's not a red corner notice. I don't know why we say that. In Interpol, it's known as a red notice. There's no corner in it. So anyway, a red notice was issued. And a red notice is only issued after certain formalities are completed. There has to be a warrant of arrest by a competent court. And for that, you have to give the court enough evidence and information. And a red notice is not an international warrant of arrest. It is just an alert given to all the Interpol countries that this person is wanted in India. Now, there are a lot of cases where no action is taken. For example, you have Dawood Ibrahim and some bomb accused staying in a neighboring country. But in spite of numerous red notices, no action has been taken against them. So, and if, I don't know, if Nirav Modi is traveling on a different passport and not on an Indian passport, then maybe the red notice does not come into play, because the nationality shown in the red notice would not be the same as what he's traveling on. Plus, the document is completely different. So it's quite possible that there may be a red notice on Nirav Modi on an Indian passport, and if he's traveling on, say, a Belgian passport or whichever passports he has, then the red notice will not come into play. So that is
So where does that then leave the hunt for Nirav Modi, Mr. Singh? Because as you pointed out, we don't know whether he continues to use his Indian passport, though that's what the Interpol seems to suggest in response to the diffusion notice, that he has used the Indian passport to travel between the UK, Hong Kong and the US between the 15th of March and the 31st of March. So that has been cleared up in its response to the Indian government and Indian agencies on the 5th of June, as quoted by the Indian Express.
You see, the Indian passport is a valid document as far as its validity is concerned, the date. So if you revoke the passport, definitely you cannot travel out of India because it would be an invalid passport. But whether the other countries would have that knowledge that this passport has been revoked, because a red notice is the only notice that is sent through Interpol. Okay, maybe the Indian authority may have written to Britain separately, but there would be a whole lot of hosts of other countries where he's traveling, where this revocation may not be there in their database. It would only be a red notice.
Okay, let me go back across to my colleague Sanjay. We had lost that line with him. I'll just come back to you, Mr. Singh. Sanjay, you were telling us that the Indian authorities had written to the UK Home Office on the 19th of February, and yet it seems that Nirav Modi managed to make it to the United Kingdom.
Well, the response of the UK authorities to the government was that he had entered UK before the 19th of February, so that particular order of revocation could not be, of course, invoked or acted upon. But there are some reports now emerging that the UK authorities have been alerted to possibly more than one Indian passport itself that Nirav Modi may have been traveling on. And this is uncertain territory, let's admit. There are some reports suggesting that he's on a Singaporean passport. But what we do know for sure is that the Indian government has alerted the British authorities to the possession of possibly more than one Indian passport itself. with Nirav Modi. Because clearly he has traveled following that date, and the investigation now is focusing which particular passport he may have traveled on. Of course, a possession of more than one passport of a same nationality is a clear crime recognizable in any country around the world. It's another matter for him to have an Indian passport revoked and then acquire another passport from Singapore or St. Kitts or whatever. But to have more than one Indian passport would be a clear crime in itself, and this is now the focus of investigation, what documents and what papers he traveled on. Some reports suggesting that towards the end of March he left for Paris from Britain, but that too is not confirmed. So whether he is somewhere in the EU in that jurisdiction or he is back in London, this is now the subject of current investigation.
Okay, let me take that point across to both Mr. Singh as well as Ambassador KC Singh. Sir, as a former man in charge of passports, what we've just heard there from Sanjay Suri, that there could in fact be the curious case of Nirav Modi having more than one Indian passport. Forget a Singaporean passport or any other jurisdiction. More than one Indian passport. There is no confirmation, but that is a matter of investigation.
Well, that becomes an additional criminal act because you can't have, under false pretenses, a second Indian passport. And if you're holding passport of another country, that again is illegal because we don't allow dual nationality. So you can't have passports of two different countries. So if he's done that, but that comes into play once you catch him. Till you catch him, of course, it becomes a difficulty. But I think 6 months, my good friend AP is speaking on the other side, a former director CBI, but 6 months to issue a red notice, let's say not red corner notice, is really too much time. I mean, basically you had to have very quickly a case, go to the magistrate and at least get your red notices out. Because you knew he's an international fugitive, he has the money, he has the loot, he'll be very difficult to trace and he'll be moving about. So instead of just revoking passports, then waiting, sending letters to foreign offices, which may or may not take notice of them, you had to get a red notice out immediately. And I think that's been a lacuna in this case.
Okay, Mr. Singh, respond to that this scam came to light in January. Now it seems very clear that the passport revocation made no difference whatsoever because we knew that Nirav Modi had already left the country even before the revocation notice had come into effect. And since then, barely, a few days ago, have the Indian authorities moved ahead with a red notice. Respond to Mr. KC Singh's point there that this seems to have been the failing of the Indian authorities.
Well, since I'm not aware of the circumstances, I certainly can't comment on that. But yes, certainly if a crime has been committed and the person is absconding abroad, then definitely a red notice is the first action that any criminal agency would take. So if there has been any delay, I'm sure they'll look into it.
Mr. Singh, what could be the next steps now? We've moved as far as the red notice is concerned. What would you imagine should be the next steps now as the hunt for Nirav Modi continues?
See, first you have to locate where he is. And then you have to send, what happens in the red notice is that wherever he's traveling, usually the country very sort of disembarks or he's staying, the immigration authorities will inform the local Interpol that he is in that country, and then the Interpol will inform the Indian Interpol. And after that, we have to send the papers, the warrant of arrest, the papers for his extradition. So that's quite a time-consuming process. And in most countries, it's a very legal kind of, it's the same thing as what would be in the case of Mr. Vijay Mallya or in the case of Mr. Lalit Modi. You have to fight it out in court. And it's not something that will happen overnight. So, as you are aware, you must be aware that we haven't had many successes, especially from European countries and even the UK in extraditing people who are wanted there. And some of the cases I can mention, some of the good cases that happened in the CBI. One is Abu Salman, coming from Portugal. That was a success. And in my tenure, we had 1 or 2 extraditions. One was a drug lord an Israeli drug lord who was wanted by the Goa police. And he was detained in Peru. And you see, in most Interpol red notices, there is no, it's not obligatory on the country concerned to arrest or detain the person. They can just merely inform you, and you have to send all your papers. So for us, fortunately, Peru detained this drug lord, and then we sent a team and we brought him back. Similarly, in another South American country, I don't remember this. There was a person from this IT-813 hijack. He was a Pakistani with the same name as one of the accused. And they detained him and they sent us the information, and we sent a team there. But it turned out it was not, it was a case of mistaken identity. So some countries do cooperate, like they detain the person and they tell you that you send a team immediately with all the facts and the warrant of arrest. And they cooperate. But from the European, most of the European states are very reluctant.
We haven't...
And yeah, we have to go through the
we haven't had much
process.
luck when it comes to the EU.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
Ambassador Singh, let me get a final comment from you before I get a closing comment from Sanjay Suri as well, our colleague in London. You know, extradition is a different matter. We first need to find out where Nirav Modi is. Now, we learned that earlier this week, the CBI has in fact moved the Interpol to issue that red notice against both Nirav Modi, Mehul Choksi, and now we understand his brother Nishal Modi as well. You know, do you believe that we're now on a bit of a wild goose chase, because nobody really seems to know where Nirav Modi is?
You see, because if the reports are correct that he's gone to Belgium, both because that's where the diamond business is, but also he would have entered the Schengen visa regime countries, so he can move amongst 24 countries or 25 countries without any need of a passport. So it becomes more and more difficult to then catch hold of him once he's on the continent. In England, at least, he's on an island state and you know he can't leave. Secondly, on an escalating scale, once we know he's in a particular country, then the extradition papers arrive. And the extradition papers is where the country's obligation then is to detain him and only then let him out on bail after setting conditions. Then he can't move about, like it's happened in case of Malia. So it's in terms of stages, you have the red notice so that we know where he is. Then we send the extradition documents which make sure that he won't be moving about and a court starts looking at the extradition request. Then you are getting closer and closer to getting hold of him. But at the moment, I think it's a wild goose chase because if he's gone to Belgium, we don't know whether he's there or he's gone to any other EU country. And so whom do you send an extradition request to? Because he's not even been detained. So that, I think, at the moment is it's a wild goose chase.
Okay, Sanjay, I'll end by asking you, you know, you've been speaking with sources in the UK, both on the Indian side as well as the UK side. What's your own sense? Is there a degree of helplessness at this point, given the situation?
Well, a critical decision will be the red notice we were talking about. And this is not a simple matter of the CBI or the ED getting a red corner or red notice issued. They can only apply for it. A decision to issue such a notice would be that of Interpol, and that assesses applications very closely. We only now had an arrest warrant. No doubt there has been some delay, but the prosecuting agencies in India would need to make sure that they have a firm enough case assembled against him before applying for a red notice. And increasingly, Interpol has been denying red notices to jurisdictions around the world. They assess the evidence presented very closely. There is a further fact here, that the defense for Nirav Modi is coming from none other than a firm where Lalit Modi is an investor. Lalit Modi, through that legal firm Lindeborg, has been advising Nirav Modi on how to contest a red notice to see that such a notice is not issued. And this is expensive consultation. We are told that the fee for the initial consultation alone, the single initial consultation, is $250,000. Clearly, this is a firm with expertise and resources and the confidence that they can deliver and stave off that red notice. Because if that is issued, then the country in which this person is located, Nirav Modi, would be bound to take some action and arrest him.
Well, $250,000 shouldn't be tough given the situation that we're talking about. But Sanjay Suri, AP Singh and Mr. Singh, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18 to discuss the curious case of Nirav Modi travelling on a revoked Indian passport and the chase to hunt him down. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV18 special. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There's a lot more coming up.